Greetings, brethren.
Greetings.
On this day of trumpets. In Psalm 81:3 it says, "Blow a trumpet on the new moon." This is the only new moon of the 7 holy days of the annual ones in the Bible. Why? Because it is a dark moon. And this is a day of gloominess. It's called in scriptures the day of the Lord. Now what is that? Now this is the 4th of God's holy days. It starts the fall festival, the end game. After this is tabernacles, and then finally the new heavens and new earth. So, what is this day of the Lord? And we have in Isaiah 34, let's go there. This is the wrath of God. This is somewhere you don't want to be around. And come near, it says in verse 1, you nations, to hear, you people. Hearken, let the earth hear, and its fullness of the world, and its offspring. For the anger of the Lord is upon all nations. Does it say some? This is a one world system. And his fury upon all their armies. He has completely destroyed them. He's telling what's going to happen before it happens. Also, their dead shall be thrown out, and their stink shall come up out of their dead bodies, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. And we'll learn about that. That's the battle of Armageddon. And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled up like a scroll. Now this is a type of the very, very end. Because when Christ returns, it's going to be with fire. And all their hosts shall fall down as leaves fall from the vine, and as the falling fig from the fig tree. For my sword is bathed in heavens. Behold, it shall come down upon Edom, and upon the people of my curse for judgment. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. This is that day. And this sermon's about the significant points of this day. Events that occur today. It says in Colossians 2 that God's feast, they foreshadow things to come. And that's how great our God is. He tells us in advance. So there's no excuses, is there? Now, let's continue in this chapter. What is the day of the Lord? Is it 24 hours? We read, and continuing here in verse 8, for it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, the year to repay for the fighting against who? Zion. And that's right, down through history. In fact, at the very end, the man of sin takes his army and penetrates all the way to Jerusalem. He goes to Zion. And he declares himself God. And at that moment are 3.5 years left on the face of the earth of man's rule. See? And 2 witnesses go out in Revelation 11. And they preach for these 3.5 years. But it's not until the last year of the 3.5 is the day of vengeance, which is God's wrath, which will be upon the whole face of the earth. And it's going to be 1 year long. Now look at your chart. Now, I have a chart here. Last year's sermon was on this chart. I'm just going to do a quick review because the day of the Lord is 1 year long. This starts on trumpets today. So if this was the last year, it would start today. You understand that? And then you will find in Revelation 8, it starts the first angel blowing the trumpet. This is a day of trumpets. Do you get that? How about that? The day of trumpets. Many trumpets will be blown. And you'll see that 7 will be blown because it says, and the first trumpet's blown, this is when hail and fire goes on. You know you have 1 year left until the return of Christ of the Battle of Armageddon. And then you go to the second trumpet, which happens to fall on the next holy day, 10 days from now, the Day of Atonement. And that is Revelation 8, mountains and fire are cast in sea. God's just pounding the earth with his wrath before he takes it over. Then you have the third trumpet in Revelation 8, the star wormwood. 1/3 of the rivers and fountains of water are made bitter. Then you have the fourth trumpet, which happens on the 8th day. So each trumpet's blown on a holy day, and it says that. We'll learn that in Numbers 10. So now you have 4 trumpets blown all the way to the 8th day. Now you have the 5th trumpet blown, and you go all the way to the 7th trumpet blown. Now the 7th trumpet, we know at the last trump what happens. At the last trump, what happens? We're resurrected. And when are we resurrected? The day of Pentecost, the feast of first fruits, the harvest, the first harvest of souls, okay? But wait a second. When you blow that trumpet, well, the angel does, that you have here, the 7th one, that's not a full year yet. You still have 109 days left. 3.5 months separate Pentecost to trumpets. It hasn't been a year yet. But when that year is completed, that's when we who are in heaven, do you understand we have to be there first? Okay? So when we're raised at Pentecost, we go up for what? A wedding ceremony. That's Revelation 19. Rewards are given out. And we'll learn a little bit more about this. My point that I want to give is the day of the Lord is 1 year. And it starts on today, the Feast of Trumpets, and it ends when he takes over the earth. And like it said in the reading, 10 days from now, Satan is then put away. But first we take over earth with the Lord. And we're going to go into this a little bit more. It is 1 year. Each trumpet is blown on each of the 7 holy days. And it works out perfectly. Let's go to Numbers chapter 10. Numbers 10. What are these trumpets? And in Numbers 10, I'm going to read 1 to 4. It says, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Make 2 trumpets of silver for yourself. You shall make them for beaten work, and they shall be used for what? The calling of the assembly, and for the journeying of the camps." So that's one use. Verse 3, "And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall gather themselves to you at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And if they blow with 1 trumpet, then the leaders who are the heads of the thousands of Israel shall gather themselves to you. When you blow an alarm, then the camps that lie on the east part shall set out. When you blow an alarm the second time, then the camps that lie on the south shall set out. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys." 7. "But when the congregation is to be gathered, you shall blow, and you shall not sound an alarm." Now let's go to verse 9. "And if you go to war," what happens on the battle of Armageddon? God's saints go to war on this day. This is a significant day. It says, "If you go to war in your land against the enemy who attacks you, then you shall blow with the silver trumpets," it's 2, "and you shall be remembered before the Lord your God, and you shall be saved from your enemies." Will that happen? Yes, because the Lord declares it. And in verse 10, "Also in the day of your gladness and your appointed feasts." You know that word is a moad. That's all 7 feasts. A trumpet is blown, which is the 7 trumpet plagues. Significant, isn't it? They all have purpose. They all have meaning. "And in the beginnings of your months, they shall also be blown." Do you know today is the beginning of a month of the Hebrew calendar? It's 7/1. At Tabernacles, it will be 7/15. So in 15 more days, we'll be there, and it will be Tabernacles. "And you shall blow with the silver trumpets over your burnt offerings," and so forth. So, trumpets will be blown. We will be taken up, the ones alive, to meet the ones in the air. And that will happen on the seventh trump, on the day of Pentecost. Okay? But understand, what does the seventh trumpet do in Revelation? This is clear. If you have ears to hear and eyes to see, it says the seventh trumpet starts 7 vial plagues. So when we get taken through the door to the wedding ceremony, the earth is getting pounded with 7 vial plagues. You understand that? He's getting it prepped for us to take over. And so that's in your chart. That's, see, the third woe. That starts the 7th trumpet. So when we're taken up, the third woe occurs, and the very first thing is boils on men. Boils, just like in Job. And we're in heaven on the sea of glass then. So let's go to Proverbs 20. Proverbs 20. Our God is a great God, and our God has wisdom. And what does wisdom do? It prepares. Wisdom prepares you for the future, right? We're not lazy and sticking around and then a thief comes in the middle of the night. We're ready for that thief. And we're ready when Christ returns, aren't we? Why? Because we have wisdom. The Proverbs are about those that love wisdom. And they apply it. And we have here in Proverbs 20, verse 18, it says, every purpose is established by counsel, and with good advice make war. Do you think God follows that verse? Do you think, as some wrongfully said in the churches of God, that yes, we rise on trumpets for our resurrection, and then we just rise and fight without any preparation, without any learning, without anything? They err. They don't understand there's 7 vial plagues after the 7th trumpet. They do not understand this, but we do. Because we keep the holy days of God. We go out on the Pentecost, don't we? And we know that's a harvest of souls. So we learn that. Now, if we go to Proverbs 21:31, we read here, the horse is prepared for the day of battle, yet victory is from the Lord. Do you know the saints are on white horses when they return to take over? That's because we prepped. It says the horse is prepared. Even those horses, that each saint will have one horse, right? Could it be, ring the bell, that Matthew 18, it says, this is a fact, each one of the called out ones has a guardian angel. God even says that each one reports to him. So be careful what you say to God's children, okay? Could it be that you all have a horse? It says that they were once here with Elisha and Gehazi. And Gehazi, I don't see it. What is wrong? What is wrong? Open your eyes, he asked God. I see. Now some have to see and touch and to believe. Okay? Blessed are those who don't have to see and believe. Do you believe it without seeing and touching? Because God says it? Do you understand that those horses, how did they get there to fight Syria? They went through the door, they went to Jacob's ladder, didn't they? They're familiar with coming down. And it said they had chariots, and it says they had horses. Could those be the same horses that battle Syria, that will battle Armageddon armies? Why not? Now that's speculative, I understand that, but it makes sense. Because we're going to learn, we return with white horses. Now just really quick, I'm just going to read Psalm 18:34 because you could write it down. In the reading, listen to this one. You read Psalm 18:34, Eric did. Do you know it says that the Lord trains our hands for battle? That's what it says. Trains our hands for battle. So, do you think we just get resurrected without training and just fight? Oh, what's this horse? One just fight? It doesn't make sense. We go up on Pentecost, the Feast of First Fruits. And then there's a wedding ceremony. We train. We learn to ride our horses. We learn the plan, the counsel. It says in Joel 2, we shall not break our ranks. What are ranks? Because we know about them. We have strategy, right? And we're extremely intelligent. And we learn and do the ways of the Lord. So that's what happens. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2. This is a significant day. Now, who's our enemy? Who do we fight against? What does it say in Ephesians chapter 6? We wear the armor of who? Yourself? The armor of God, right? Is that invisible? Yes. Now, who's our enemy? It's an invisible enemy. His name is none other than Satan the devil. He's read in chapter 13 of Revelations. You know that? And he's a dragon, and he has wings in Ezekiel. He's powerful, and he wants to consume you. He wants to suck life out of you. That's who our enemy is, and he has many demons, doesn't he? And they appear as angels of light. That's our enemy. And now we go to 2 Thessalonians 2, and we read this in verse 8. And then the lawless one will be revealed. That's what we're waiting for in prophecy. He comes out of the midst, out of the waters, out of the people. And it says, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and will destroy with the brightness of his coming. Now what's that? He's coming with the saints and his angels. And he destroys them with his light, his power. It says in 9, even the one who is coming is according to who? The inner working of Satan. Who's our inner working? Christ. See? And if you read in Revelation chapter 13, 3 and 4, it says this man of sin received a head wound. And some say that happened already and all that, but then why would it say this? He received a head wound that the whole world was amazed. And when you read Revelation 13 in the context, this is the beast power at the very end. Now there are types. That's true. But it sounds like Satan revives him and possesses him. This is who we're fighting. Wouldn't it make sense that the man of sin is being run by Satan the devil himself? So we have here, this is who leads the battle on this day of Armageddon. And in verse 9, even the one who is coming is according to the inner working of Satan with all power. And how does he do it? Signs. Oh, you want touch? The Jews require a sign. They got to touch. They got to feel and see things and wear things and touch things and embrace things. They're physical. And he, guess who he deceives? The physical people. And it says with signs and lying wonders. Did you know that Satan had 1/3 of the angels deceived? They were cast down onto earth. Remember that? How do you think he did that? Oh, God's not great, follow me. Oh, I got him. You think it was that easy? It was done through politics, through propaganda. That's what it was done through. I have a better way. Look at this, right? Little crumbs he threw out. Look at, you can have treasures now. You can have this. Don't be that white horse. Come here, horse. You don't need to be that one riding in the future. What? Be your own gallop. Do your own way, right? What about your ranking, your way? See? Those angels were made to serve. To serve who? God. Now they're serving self, right? So he does lying wonders. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness, and those who are perishing. Those who are perishing, those who are dead, that's the armies of Armageddon. They are dead. Adam, the day you eat of it, you will die. How are you made alive? Through Christ. You were once dead. Wait, I was once dead? That means they're all dead. The world is dead. Yes. You're only alive when you have Christ living in you. That's the only way to eternal life, is to know the Father and to know Jesus Christ. That's eternal life. How is it life when you're going to die? You're a dead man walking, they call that in the jail cell. So the world, it says that they're perishing. It says it right here. And so, it says, because they did not receive the love of the truth, so that they might be saved. Now, could these be ones that were called and they're fooled by this man of sin? And for this cause, God will send upon them a powerful deception that will cause them to believe the lie. Do you understand that? It's kind of like Adam. Oh, you don't want to follow me, Adam? Your whole land's cursed. Everything. God can do that. So then all may be judged who did not believe the truth, but who took pleasure in unrighteousness. Just that little saying, brethren, on this day of trumpets, the enemy's destroyed, right? That enemy is dead man walking, right? And they took pleasure in unrighteousness, correct? Why would we ever take pleasure in unrighteousness? Let's, at this moment, from this moment on, throw out all unrighteousness. There are filthy rags, even man's ways are. And let's do God's righteousness and allow Christ to grow into us so we can be the virtuous woman, the bride that returns with Christ. Otherwise, you're joining that army. And you don't want that fate, brethren. We want to live. So God gives us holy days. These are real. This is the fourth one. It's a day of vengeance. Our enemy is Satan and his demons. It's real. Let's go to Revelation 9. Revelation 9. Now I understand it's very cryptic. It says in Proverbs 25 verse 1 and 2 that a king's duty is to what? Search out a matter. The day of trumpets is cryptic. And if we keep this day, we will learn more. And that's what we're doing today. So in Revelation chapter 9, there's an army at the end. But first, just take a little note. Revelation 9:1. See where it says the fifth angel sounded his trumpet? Did you know that happens on the first day of unleavened bread? Okay? That's 5 feasts from now. Okay? Each one blows on a feast day. It's what it says. We follow it. Now, we know here, the fifth angel, it opens up a bottomless abyss. And we know what's happening with CERN. I've given a sermon. You could look it up on YouTube. CERN is real. It's like the old Babylon, Tower of Babel. They were tapping into something and God had to stop them. Right? And it's going to release all these locusts. And these are demons. Okay? And they go and torment men. These demons. And it's possible they can even go into the 200-man army. This 200-man army is not just men. It's men possessed. So I just wanted to show you, that is the 5th trumpet, Revelation 9:1. Now let's go to what I brought you here. Let's go to Revelation 9:16. Well, I'll read 15. Then the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and day, now this is the 6th trumpet, were loosed so that they might kill 1/3 of men, and the number of the armies of the horsemen are 200 million. That's who we fight. 200 million at the Battle of Armageddon. See that? Now, let's go to Revelation 19. So this day, it all started 1 year prior that you will have, it will take a year to get to the Battle of Armageddon. Do you understand that? It's the year of the Lord. And soon as that happens, the earth is getting pounded. Now, on this day, we're already in heaven. We received our crowns. We are officially kings. We have our glory. We are married to Jesus Christ. We are dressed in white linen. We're pure and righteous. We prepared for battle. We receive our horses. And guess what we do now? Let's go to verse 11. And I saw heaven open. What does that tell you right there? Didn't heaven open for Jesus Christ when he returned in Acts chapter 1? Didn't it open when Jacob had a vision and he went on Jacob's ladder? Remember? And it opened into God's realm. See? We're outside of God's realm. We're in a simulation of it. And that's a whole nother topic. And I saw heaven open. Isn't that significant? John the apostle, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on it is called Faithful and True. That's Jesus Christ. And in righteousness he does judge and make war. Now, that's amazing. Who is that white horse? We know there's at least 144,001 white horses, because it says we all ride them. But out of all the horse kingdom, why did that one white horse get to ride on the King of Kings? Actually, he ride him. Isn't that an awesome feat? Do you think God just went poof and made him that? What if even the angels have things to prove? They got to prove their worth. They have running their race, have contests. Why not? Doesn't God think that way for us? Doesn't he give ranks and what we deserve? Some he gives 5 cities. Some he gives 10 cities. These are intellectual, powerful, angelic beings. Okay? And it says he does judge and make war. And his eyes were like a flame of fire. And on his head were many crowns. What's that? Some say, I'm not going to be a king. Well, then that crown's not waiting for you. These are 144,000 crowns. It says they will become kings in Revelation 5:10. And he had a name written that no one knows except him. And he was clothed with a garment dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. And the armies in heaven were following him on white horses. And they were clothed in fine linen, white and pure. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, and with it he might smite the nations. And he shall shepherd them with an iron rod, and he treads the winepress of the fury and the wrath of the Almighty God. This is the day of the Lord, the accumulation of the wrath of God. 16, and on his garment and on his thigh he has a name written, King of Kings. That's us. The kings. Lord of Lords. That's us. That's the priests. Then I saw an angel standing in the sun. Wow. That sounds like something out of a movie. And he cried out with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in the midst of heaven. He can talk to the birds? Absolutely. He talked to a raven, didn't he? And he fed Elijah, the prophet. Come and gather yourselves together to the supper of the great God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of chief captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of those who sit on them, and the flesh of all, free and bond, and small and great. And I saw the beast, and the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war with him, who sit on the horse, and with his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet, who worked miracles in the presence. They're destroyed. By which he had deceived those who received the mark of the beast, and those who worshipped his image. Those two were cast alive. Now they're cast alive. When does that happen? We know this is a future event. Some have mistakenly say there's a lake of fire right then. Well, we know in 2 Peter chapter 3 that the lake of fire, it says, is made out of what? The present day heavens and earth. It says they will be melted for the ungodly. Are they ungodly? See? So it's just telling their fate. Remember when he started this, he says he will destroy them. They're done. God talks in future tense. Those two were cast alive into the lake of fire, which burns with brimstone. And the rest were killed by the sword of him who sits on the horse, even the sword, and goes out of his mouth, and all the birds were filled with their flesh. Now, if there's a type of lake of fire, that's a whole nother story. But ultimately, they go and they've committed the unpardonable sin. Anyone destroyed in a lake of fire has committed the unpardonable sin. So, we don't need to follow a beast power. Have it all now. Come on, enjoy the cotton candy. Enjoy, ride the rides. Do fun, have pleasures, more. That will end. Look at their fate. It ends. It expires. It's rotten to the core. So, God will have his vengeance. Let's go to Revelation 14. Now in Revelation 14, verse 19, this is an inset chapter, the 144,000. It says these are the first fruits of God. Nowhere else does it say, and the great multitude is the first fruits. Nowhere in the Bible. Don't let anyone fool you on that. It's the 144,000. You can read about it, and it says right here in verse 19, and the angel thrust the sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast its fruit into the great winepress of the wrath of God. These are the dead men walking, the 200 million man army. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood spewed out from the winepress as high as a horse's bridle, so the distance of 180 miles. Do you understand how much blood that is? And how disgusting and sick that is? That's who they are. That's what God sees, way of life contrary to God's. And he will take care of business, won't he? So that is called the Battle of Armageddon, which happens today. That's why it's significant to understand the events of the future. So we keep it. And we follow God, as we will follow his white horse on other white horses with mighty angels. So, let's go to Romans 12. Have you ever witnessed a brother or sister, how about even yourself, become so angry at somebody, cuts you off on the freeway, someone talking politics on the TV or even in person, and become so angry and they want them evaporated right then? If they had the power, they'd just poof and they'd be gone. Should we do that? Now, God says the day of vengeance is his. Let's read Romans 12:17. And we read, then the dragon was furious with the woman. Okay, I'm going to go, that's Revelation 12, that's a fact. I'm going to go to Romans 12:17. Okay, Romans 12:17, 2 verses. We read, do not render to anyone evil for evil, but be prepared to do what is right in the sight of all men. You don't do that. It says, if possible, as much as is your part, be at peace with all men. What did Christ say? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are called what? The sons of God. I'll read more. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, rather leave this to God's wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine. I will recompense, says the Lord. You're in a bind, God will take care of it. You do not need to slap someone back because they slap you. It says here, therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him drink. For in doing this, you will be heaping coals of fire on his head. Maybe he won't join the army of Armageddon if you do this. You slap him back, he's going, oh, I'm going to join, sign me up. I'm going to hit this guy back, and I'm going to fight against you. See the difference? And they do fight against God. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So that's another point of this day. Vengeance is God's. When does it happen? Today. Not tomorrow, not yesterday. So we wait on it. Let God do your bidding. Can he do it better than you? So take the anger, Get it aside. And it's also a sign of self-righteousness. When we want to fix this present-day world on our terms, not God's, on our own timing, right? Then we seek what world? This world. We want it fixed for us. And you will not make it to the kingdom with that mindset. So this is a significant day. Now finally, let's go to Daniel chapter 2. Daniel 2. Daniel was a prophet sent to Babylon. Babylon took over the southern kingdoms of Judah. And we know that it happened. And let's go to Daniel chapter 2. And I have a little chart here that we'll read here in Daniel chapter 2, verse 42. Now the king had a vision, right? And this is a fact. That king was duped before this vision. You know how you know it? He says, oh, on this vision, you're going to have to tell me the vision without me telling it to you. That proves he was duped before. He didn't trust them, right? So Daniel says, oh, it's not me who interprets, it's God. God gave you that dream, and here's the interpretation of it. Okay? So let's go to verse 42. And it says here, Daniel 2, we know, let me just really quick, the Babylon is the head of gold. That is Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. Persia is the breast and arms of silver. Greece is the belly and thighs of bronze. You know, Alexander the Great. He tried to rule the world, did he? Did it work? Did it work? Rome, they tried. Legs of iron, 2 divisions. Didn't work. Now we're going into the 10 toes. That's our future. See? That's what's coming next. It's kind of like if you lived in Babylon and someone said, Persia's coming next. What? I don't believe it. But it did it? Okay? So the toes are coming. There's going to be 10 kings. And they're going to be ruling in a government that's going to fight us in the Battle of Armageddon. So that's the beast power to come. Now, verse 42, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. That's interesting. And whereas you saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mix themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cling to one another, even as iron does not combine with clay. Sounds like they don't get along, huh? And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. Now stop there. I meditated on this. When Babylon, it looks so powerful. Look at this. Remember Nebuchadnezzar says, look what I created. Powerful, right? Well, he had to be humble. Became an animal 7 years, right? Well, what came next? Persia. Did Persia last? No. None of them last. But God says, after he destroys the 10 toes, it will last forever. This is the one you want to invest in. If you buy stock in something, you want this stock. And so we read here, verse 44, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, not to Persia, not another one, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms. See, when the toes are destroyed by the rock at the end, it's the head all the way down gets destroyed, proving they exist today. The mindset of Babylon exists today. And it says, because, verse 45, you saw that the stone, that's Christ, was cut out of the mountain, that's the government of God, without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. It's going to happen. Nothing can stop it. Right? Did someone stop Babylon? Yes, Persia. Did something stop Persia? Yeah, Greece. Did something stop Greece? Yeah, Rome. Something stopped Rome, and you can go to the 10 toes. But this one, nothing stops. And we can be a part of it forever. And so, when those toes are broken up with that rock, guess when that happens? Today. That is understanding. And 46, I'm just going to read 46. I wasn't going to read it, but this is how our attitude should be. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face, and he worshipped Daniel, because he represented God, and he commanded to offer an offering. He was so humbled by this. He knew it came from God. Do you know that this comes from God? Do you know that these holy day plans, 1 to 7, come from God? How about the weekly Sabbath? The kingdom's coming. The kingdom's coming. One day it will be here. Let the righteous be righteous still. Let the unrighteous. Too late. You need to act now. We need to keep these holy days with alarm. So, let's be sober. Let's wake up. Let's keep the holy days of God so we can see the vision of His glorious plan, which ends in a new heavens and new earth. This is just one more holy day closer to the kingdom. So, brethren, I hope you have a sobering day of trumpets, and one day, on this day, hope to see you alongside on a white horse.